Cheesecake. Wouldn't you just want to have a bite of this smooth, rich, velvety deliciousness? I know I love cheesecake. Well, I don't even know anybody who doesn't like cheesecake, do you? I mean, just look at this. Just look at how beautiful it is. Would you like to watch me make it? Let's go. Hi, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Ade Iman, and on this channel, we do all sorts of videos, okay? Lifestyle, we bake with my kids, we talk about stuff. So if you like this type of community, if you like these types of videos, then you are welcome to subscribe and, of course, like and share and comment, okay? So let's start. Ever since I tried a cheesecake recipe from Cooking with Sugar TV on YouTube, like 6 or 7 or even 8 years ago, I totally fell in love with how the cheesecake turned out. So I have been using that same recipe ever since, and it has always turned out amazing. I'm going to put up a list of all the ingredients, don't worry. But like this recipe, I can assure you is just the bomb. Here's a little tip. I think you should keep in mind that a lot of these American recipes tend to add too much sugar, in my opinion, to their recipes. So what I usually do is like put in half or 1/3 of what the recipe actually calls for. So just keep that at the back of your mind. So first of all, we are going to prepare our pie crust, which is simply crushed biscuits. You can use any type of cookies or biscuits or whatever. You can use one, you can use a combination of plenty. It all depends on your own taste. A little bit of sugar if the cookies are not very sweet, and a little bit of butter. Blend it up until, as you can see, it holds its shape when you squeeze it inside your palm. And next, you may then transfer it to your baking dish and make sure no crumbs are left behind. Using your palm or like the bottom of a cup, you can then push it into the dish, like on the bottom and up against the sides. Make sure there are no cracks, spaces, or loose crumbs hanging around. Little secret, but don't tell anybody. Oh. The pie crust of the cheesecake is like my least favorite part of the cheesecake. And I found out that that's not only me, even my kids don't like it. What we usually do is we just eat the top and then force ourselves to eat the bottom. And by force ourselves, it's usually me trying to force the kids to eat the rest of the cheesecake so that it doesn't go to waste. But over time, what I just learned to do is make the pie crust as thin as possible. By the time it's done, most of it has already melted into the cheesecake, so it's all fun for everybody. Once the crust is ready, it goes straight into the oven for 10 minutes. Then we can now turn our attention to the favorite part, the best part, which is the main cheesecake itself. This is a 1 pound container of cheesecake. I don't know how many kg, they just wrote 1 pound, and I'm right now not in the mood for any calculation, so it's just 1 pound, okay? And I got this at Sahad store, their central area branch. Recipe calls for whisking the cream cheese immediately after you've put it inside the mixing bowl. And so that's what I did. Though from experience, I don't really see any difference in the end product whether you do this whisking step or not. So it's optional. You can do it or you don't do it. It doesn't really affect the end product in any way. Then we start cracking the eggs. I know every single one of us has experienced this, where we just think that the eggs are good and we can just crack them right into the bowl of the batter, only for us to be disgustingly surprised. So ever since I've learned the hard way to always make sure I crack my eggs in a separate bowl, and then once I'm happy, I'm like sure that they're okay, they're good to go, I transfer them into the main bowl. And so that's what we're doing here. And of course, this is also a learning curve for my kids as well. They learn to crack eggs. They learn all these small things that, maybe for some of us, we learned it at a much older age. But alhamdulillah, I'm happy that they're learning it now at their like teeny tiny ages of 6 and 7. And of course, trust me, the no wastage queen. Sometimes after you've cracked eggs, there's still a little bit of the egg white stuck inside the shell. Well, I always make sure that I get those little bits out as well, because that's just how we roll here. The eggs really make the batter to be so much more watery. I used to be so worried, like from previous experiences, previous batches. I'd be so worried as to how watery it turns out, because when you're watching it on YouTube, you don't really see their cream cheese getting so watery, getting so diluted with the eggs. But once again, no worries, it will turn out perfectly fine. So just go ahead and add as many eggs as the recipe calls for. And also they'll usually call for large eggs, and you know, for us here in Nigeria, almost everything we get is natural. So the eggs are from like what do you call them? I think it's called free range eggs. The eggs anyways come from, you know, chickens the natural way. Natural, you know what I'm trying to say, Sha? Just that the eggs are not these jumbo abnormal or artificial eggs. They're just the normal eggs you get from normal chicken. So just try to adjust the sizes, or the quantity accordingly. Like for example, if the recipe calls for 5 large eggs, maybe you can use 6 normal size eggs. Yeah. So next up, we went ahead with the sugar and the vanilla essence and 2 tablespoons of flour. And as I mentioned earlier, I greatly reduced the amount of sugar that they mentioned in the recipe. Like, no way if to say I was going to use that same amount of sugar. This wasn't going to be cheesecake, this was going to be sugar cake with a side of cream cheese. Anyways, and this I'm putting in some of the lemon juice that we squeezed. I kept on whisking until I felt everything had been incorporated. And it's also important that you give it a taste when you're done, just to make sure that you're happy with the sugar, with the sweetness. If it's not enough, you can add. If it's just right, perfect. If it's too much, you're on your own with that one. Just pray that somehow the sugar evaporates during the baking process and it turns out just fine. And here we are, of course, all of us, because you know, we do everything together. So when it comes to tasting, everybody has to have a taste. And this time when we tasted it, it was perfect. It was ready to get right into the oven. And I believe I added lemon zest at some point. It really does add a beautiful scent and a little additional taste of lemon in the cheesecake. So I'd also highly recommend that. So here the dish is coming out of the oven, and then I started pouring in the batter. As you can see how watery it is, as I mentioned earlier. The reason I'm pouring it this way is because from previous experiences I've learned that if you just pour it all at once in one spot, it's going to destabilize, or it's going to lift up the cookie layer, the biscuit layer. Yeah, so just try to pour it as gently and as evenly as possible, so that will not happen. And here is another hack I learned over the years. Always make sure you have another pan, whether it's a bread pan or whatever pan you have available. Fill it up with water and keep it by the side of the cheesecake, of your cheesecake dish. It keeps the oven interior to be really moist and humid, so that the cheesecake won't be cracking all over on the top. And it also helps with the cheesecake baking evenly. So this is really great. Other people I've seen, they will just take the whole cheesecake dish and put it inside another bigger dish that has boiling water inside. But for me, I've tried both ways. I see it doesn't really make any difference whether the water was initially boiling or not, or just normal temperature, or whether it was the cheesecake dish was actually placed inside the hot water or not. Either way, it works out. So I find that this is best for me. So that's how I do it. Finally, after 55 minutes, I turned off the heat in the oven and allowed it to rest, and allowed the cheesecake dish, of course, to stay in there for like 20 to 30 minutes, so that it would cool down along with the oven. And then I opened the oven door and I let it once again to cool down some more for about 20 minutes before I took it out, placed it on the counter, and left that for a few more minutes until it had like substantially cooled down before I popped it in the fridge and left it in there overnight. So this is what it looked like the next day. And unfortunately, the first slice decided to give us headache and would just not come out. But subsequent slices came out perfectly and it tasted and smelled great. It was amazing. I was so happy with the way this cheesecake turned out. So, are you going to try this cheesecake soon? Let me know how yours turns out, okay? Thank you so much for watching this video till the end. Be sure to hit the like button if you've learned something and subscribe if you haven't already. Likewise, leave a comment letting me know what you think about this video and share with your family if you care. I'm a little bit under the weather, that's why my voice sounds like this. Hopefully it will be clear by the next video, inshallah. So yeah, that's all I have for you today. Why don't you watch another video? Like that chocolate cake recipe video that I made? I think you should watch it next.